The Forum at 8 with Xolani Gwala.
Mr. Fakir, and I was reading over the weekend, there seems to be an increased number of stories referring to the start of the campaign. Do you agree?
Well, yes. I mean, it's not yet a declared election period. It's not yet a declared campaign period, obviously, in terms of the Electoral Act and the Electoral Code. But I'm sure Mr. Mavapolo will give us specific around that.
Yeah.
But no doubt this is campaigning going on, and this is going on several fronts, not just activism, it's not just direct action, but there's also campaigning or attempts at campaigning going on within institutions. So you think about the ANC SOP to COSATU in Parliament last week, which means that a proposal to ballot members who want to go, or members of a union who want to go on strike, has not in fact been passed. And of course, that is one of the promises that were made to COSATU. Now, I mean, there may be good labor relations gains made out of it for stability in the labor relations system, but it is obviously a sop to COSATU, given that the ANC was initially seriously considering whether this is in fact a good thing. So quite apart from direct action going on in the Western Cape, and we can call them the poo wars, or however else we want to term it, there's also the DA's donation to OUTA, not a very big surprise, but R1 million given to OUTA to continue their case against e-tolling. We're finding a greater amount of tension in Parliament. But Xolani, this is to be expected. I mean, why do we think that politics is always clean, is always systematic, it's always going to play by the rules? It doesn't always happen that way. I mean, this is a competitive, contested terrain. We should expect certain amounts of contestation, deep contestation. And one of the most egregious ones for me, and I'm sure we can come back to that later, is the ANC's complaint about the DA's advertising on prepaid cell phone cards. Now, to me, that was quite a curious and quite an interesting take.
Right.
I think what the DA had done was quite innovative, and I think the ANC's complaint, in fact, has no merit.
All right, we'll come back to that, but I would like us to just take one campaign then individually. Perhaps let's start in the Western Cape. I mean, people are saying, rightly so, that the poo wars, as we've referred them, they're pretty crude. Are they an indication of how fierce the battle is going to be, do you think, Fakir?
Xolani, let's place this in perspective. We've been seeing direct action on the streets in communities around the country, both increasing in frequency and increasing in intensity. Now, of course, it's never reached such below-the-belt proportions, if you excuse the pun. But this direct action has also resulted in the loss of life, in councillors' homes being burnt, and I think there's a justifiable level of expression of frustration against the social powerlessness, economic marginalization that people feel. But there's also other dimensions to it. One of those dimensions is a perceived lack of accountability from local politicians and a lack of responsiveness. So people appear to engage in these acts for multiple reasons. Now, there may be very specific reasons in the Western Cape, and some of these reasons may relate to these levels of perceived frustration with accountability, the fact that there's no close fit between the community or constituency and their public representative. But, in the Western Cape, there is obviously the dynamic. You have an opposition party on a national scale, which is in fact in government. There's accusations that don't prioritize in policy terms the poor, and one doesn't know whether there is a degree of veracity to that accusation or not, because you get very differing statistics. The government and the city of Western Cape claims that it's got close to 98% coverage. There's other data which suggests that is not in fact the case. So I think this is a justifiable level of frustration. However, I do think the expression is very below the belt, is unconstructive, and is not going to be helpful in resolving any of these problems.
Now, you spoke about the ANC's complaint about what the DA refers to as the airtime voucher advertisement campaign. Was there anything, let's say, untoward about the campaign?
No, I don't think so, Xolani, but I think, in getting to understand it, we're going to have to unpack what the facts actually are.
Yeah.
And the facts actually are is that, look, there's this company, MTN, or Vodacom, or Cell C, or Virgin, or whoever the service provider is. They don't directly distribute these things, right? In some cases they do, but in this particular instance, they hired a middleman, so to speak. Whatever the company's name is, Blue Label Telecoms. I think that's the name.
Yeah,
so
that's the name.
That's right. So they use this company as a distributor. So this company, as a distributor, buys wholesale airtime from MTN or Vodacom or any service provider. They then print the vouchers, because they bought it from them. They add their markup, And then obviously, want to sell advertising space to recoup some of their costs and make a profit. So it's a purely commercial transaction which then happens at that level of the middleman. So it doesn't have anything to do with MTN, it doesn't have anything to do with any other service provider, but it has squarely to do with a commercial relationship between a middleman who's a distributor and a political party called the DA. And the DA hands over a set of cash and says, we want to advertise on this thing. And that's what they do. It's like buying a billboard.
It's interesting because the ANC looks at it holistically. It looks at this MTN saga, if you will, but it also looks at the outer issue. And they're saying the money-rich DA will never sway South Africa's poor to its side. That the DA is flaunting and flaunting cash.
Look, that's a brilliant political argument. I wouldn't disagree with it. The trouble, though, is that it's rhetorical, it's not factual completely, and it's not legal. It is, in fact, in my view, it's bullying. I don't think that if you don't like the message that is being targeted, then attack the message. You can't attack the messenger or the platform through which it is purveyed. I mean, what's next? If you don't like the DA coming in having one of the prime billboards on a big highway, either the N1 or the M1 or the M3, then what would you complain that they shouldn't be able to use their riches and their money to hire expensive billboards where there's high levels of traffic because it's opportunistic.
Interesting. All right. It appears as if the games are underway. It appears as if the opening shots have already been fired by particularly these two political parties. What should we be expecting? But also, broadly speaking, what are the rules of engagement? And that is why I have Mr. Simon Mamabolo then, who is the Deputy Chief Electoral Officer, on the other line. I would like to know the rules of engagement here, Mr. Mamabolo. From what we've heard from Mr. Fakir, your thoughts on the rules of engagement first.
Thank you, Tulani. There are two things that I think are important in this discussion. The first is the fact that in terms of the electoral law, the Electoral Act, there are prohibited conducts which are applicable at any time, even outside of the election being proclaimed. And amongst others, the prohibited conducts provide for undue influence where it happens, impersonation, infringement of secrecy, prohibition concerning voting and election materials, etc., etc. Contraventions of the prohibited conduct constitute criminal offences, and where a person is brought before a court of law and found guilty, they are liable for imprisonment for a period of between 5 to 10 years. So that's the first element. The second element is that once an election is called, there is an electoral code of conduct which is binding on political parties as well as the candidates. It provides for free political campaigning, the role of the media, the duty to cooperate, and so on and so on.
Let me read you some SMSs here. There's one from Jonas Msibi who says, Pooh Wars, banning Obama in Cape Town and the MTN adverts, they all highlight that the ANC is already in a panic mode before next year's election. Another one came through from Gossip in Peter Maritzburg who says, nothing wrong with different strategies of campaigning. It is up to the voters to decide where they put X. Western Cape people must not allow the DA to mislead them with their cheap politics. Tabo in Durban says, the issue is the prepaid voucher that I'm buying as an ANC member. Just imagine buying milk and find vote ANC on the package of Clover. That's according to Tabo in Durban. ANC feel the heat by the DA innovations up to now in 2014. It's going to be a war between them. That's Haps in Malulega. The only thing that will kill next year's elections is the ANC's insecurity and fear to lose elections. You can already tell now by their rhetoric. That's according to Spiwo and KZN. And let me come back to you here, Mr. Fakir, because it's interesting there isn't anyone raising the issue of policy. Let's debate policy. Let's debate economic policy, for instance, and unemployment in this country and how we deal with that as opposed to dealing with the Pooh Wars and Obama in Cape Town and all the other things. They are side issues, those.
Look, I think some of them are side issues. Certainly not all of them are side issues. I'm not sure that the Obama visit or the question of the pool wars or even economic policy has been completely absent in the debate. I do, however, agree with the fact that policy debate is not the determinant of outcomes of elections in South Africa and hasn't been thus far. But I'll add a rider to that too as well a little later, Kani. But it's true, yes. In general terms, it's true that policy debate does not determine the outcome of elections, and we haven't yet been having a serious policy debate. But the question of the youth wage subsidy, the question of the ANC SOP to Kusatu in Parliament last week, where the balloting of members doesn't have to happen before they decide to want to go on strike, which I think is a good rights-based thing when it comes to labor relations, and it's good for workers. So those two are policy issues. The question of the pool wars, yes, I think the expression through which this is happening is not policy, and it seems simply rhetorical, direct action. It seems irresponsible. It seems all of those things. But I mean, it goes to the heart of the matter of human rights. It goes to the heart of the matter of service delivery on basic services, and who's right and who's wrong in all of this because of the varying statistics and because of the varying data. Of course, it's very difficult to conclude. But the reality is that I think we should draw a line in the sand and say this level of expression is in fact unacceptable. But there's a flip side to that debate as well. And that reality is that how many South Africans who have either been very class mobile or who have been racially separated for so long know how the other half in the society actually lives? And I think if you think of people who are living on the left bank of Alexander Township, some people in the midst of Khayelitsha and Gugulethu, elsewhere in places in Durban, in KwaMashu, Mlazi, I'm not sure that even our urban neighbors would know how many of those South Africans live. And some of them live, quite frankly, in those conditions. Now, I think if this is going to start sensitizing South Africans, other South Africans who are unaware, it may in fact be a good thing in the long run, because they might in fact start to know how the other half lives. But as a mode of political expression, of course, I'm not sure anyone would be able to justify this.
And the suspicion arises out of the fact that the same issue of the open toilets came up in the Western Cape just before the 2011 local government elections, and then this issue comes up just before the elections again.
Absolutely. There is no doubt there's politicking going on, and I don't think we must discount that. But the fact that there is politicking does not mean and does not render the justifiability of the complaint or the act. But let's also not lose sight of the fact that though this has come to light just before an election in the Western Cape, particularly in the city of Cape Town, this is also true in ANC-governed provinces, and it came to light that in the Free State, in Makaza, there was much the same thing going on.
The Forum at 8 with Xolani Gwala.